Welcome to another day. We got a late start today, and it's probably going to be like this for a little while. It's just normal in my life. But decided we're going to pull out our bell housing and go ahead and start getting it painted up. It's kind of a couple day process because it's two colors. Tail's got to be white and the inside's got to be black. And of course the tail has to be white because there will be a white drive and that piece will stick out. It's black because the motor is a black Chevrolet motor. I would not have any other color in a boat if you paid me. I've been through that nightmare. I have, shiny silver intakes and all that good stuff, and that dust and stuff just collects up in that box and everything just gets gritty and ugly. That's why all Mercruiser motors are black. That, and kind of like with Harley, they prevent you from seeing any oil leaks either, but we tend not to have any of those. So I'm painting today, doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, doing a trim ring here, sorting out what I got going on over here. At some point, the last 2 days have been total rain outs. And I mean like total rain outs. I mean like rain all day, steady. Wasn't even good enough day to even paint and then bring the stuff back in the garage. It'd still be wet to this moment. So it's 6:30, almost 6:45. I thought, I haven't been outside in 2 days. Oh my God, I got to do something. So I came out, and instead of working on the computer, which I have, my philosophy, do something every day, I made a bunch of orders. But I feel like I'm kind of playing hooky or something when I actually don't put hands on. So today I'm doing a little hands on. Our new sender came in. We have some brackets there for our light pole. And a couple other things that are due. We are going to make some modifications to this bell housing and all that good stuff. But for first, we definitely need to get it painted up. Well, we've gone ahead and got everything painted. Damper plate. Got my flex plate cover over there. Yeah, we're paint everywhere. I tell you, I was noticing how red this was out here. Wow, what a pretty sky. It's a fall evening in Maryland, that's for sure. But now I have to go ahead and get these guys back into the garage so they'll harden up overnight. And as I said, I have some other plans for Mr. Bell Housing, which involves grease zerks there and a bunch of 1/8 inch fittings and a couple parts that are on the way. So I'll hold that mystery up until they arrive. But we also got out this stuff here. This is our anchor light and the pole holders that go with that. Now they actually have them at Atwood and places like that for these things. I used to just buy them out of Home Depot back 20 years ago. And we got our new sender all rigged up and ready to go. Tomorrow, hopefully, we'll be home in enough time to actually do this stuff. But until then, see ya. Welcome to another day. It's coming. Fall is here with a vengeance, that's for sure. Last 2 days have been pretty sucky. Got a little bit done yesterday, including painting this guy here. And yeah, it's all ready for a rebuild kit, which will come in tomorrow. It's also all ready for some modifications, which I was talking about these guys over here. But those pieces won't be in for another few days. So we're kind of on hold with this, but we are going to play with it a little bit later. At the moment, we got these two little projects. We got to get our anchor light mounted, and we have to fool with our sender here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out to the boat, since I already have my charger and all that good stuff out here. Charger, have my battery jump box, and we're going to hook the boat up and give it some power, turn it back on basically, and find out if this sender works with that gauge before we install it. So that is my game plan at the moment, is to get that done, get that pole mounted, and then I'll start working on some other little things that I can think of offhand, and see if we can make a day of it. So we went ahead and got our jump box hooked up, got our key on, and we have just temporarily placed our sender in place. And we're going to go ahead and give it a try. Yep, right up on E. Full tank. Oh no, we're out of gas. Full tank. Oh no, we're out of gas. Yeah, that seems to work well. So now we get to install it in this hole back here, but I'm telling you, the way this gas tank worked out, I don't care. These senders don't last forever, and one of the problems with a Donzi is 9 times out of 10 you got to pull the top off to get to the sender. This one I actually got out, and I guarantee you I can get this one in, even if I have to do a little shoving and pulling. But yeah, this is a good thing. The sender works right. We're fine. I've already got it measured up and cut up and twisted up like it's supposed to be. And I'm going to go ahead and get it installed and call this over with. Alright, our sender's back in. Everything's all done and tightened up. This will be the test. Ah, perfect. Just a little bit below E. That's beyond perfect. Yeah, we don't have any gas in the tank, so last time it read full. We knew there was an issue. But one down, off to the next one. Boy, you don't know how satisfying that really is. This thing's been kicking around in my garage for months. I had to buy the fitting. Actually, this piece right here. So I knew what size hole and all that good stuff would go in the deck. But it of course came with the pole itself too. And as I said, this thing's been kicking around in my garage for months. I mean, it's been moved 100 times, so this is a very satisfying moment to get rid of this thing. You know, I'm looking at my gauges a lot here for the last few minutes while I was making sure my fuel sender worked with my gas gauge. And I noticed something. If you look real carefully, it says MPH. Well, that's supposed to be a tach. And I thought, what a dumbass. I did this to myself again. Not paying attention. So I went in my little box and I dug out the tach, or what I thought was the tach. And when I reached in there, it's this. Again, the same exact gauge. The problem is this one has a pilot tube pickup on the backside, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't use it in the era of GPS. And this one has all the stuff for a tach. So apparently the base has been the wrong ones installed, and now I have to take it out, or I will have to take it out, or something. So I'm really not sure what to do with this situation, but nothing's gonna get solved anytime soon. Damn. Welcome to another day where we got our bell housing out today. Yeah, we're just doing projects after projects, and a couple of these pieces did come in, and we have a couple more showing up today. Hopefully. I don't know, it's kind of already in the afternoon here and I haven't seen them yet, so it's probably going to be one of them 7 or 8 o'clock deliveries, which really sucks. That just basically means tomorrow to me. So I've gathered some pieces together. I went ahead and I bought myself a rebuild kit for my bearing and seals and such, and in the kit came a whole bunch of crap. Yeah, I mean, I got an extra bearing, an extra seal, an extra clamp. I'm probably going to end up using my old seal, which is perfectly fine. I basically looked it over and cleaned it up real nice, and it's fine there. New seal here, which that one was bad, and then reverse, so that's the one we really need to replace anyway. And also they sent a sealed bearing, and I don't like the idea of never being able to put grease in this bearing. And the reason why I say that is because if you remove your little cap here and look at the bearing, and of course this is just the same bearing as the old one here. I mean, it's the same exact one. It's just got caps on the outside that snap in place too. I mean, they just snap right in, right out. But as you can see, that's the amount of grease that you'll end up in that bearing forever. And I mean that, forever. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little spots. Maybe they're on the other side the same way. No. So my plan is the same way I do all of these bell housings. Yes, $1,000 plus bell housings. Get modified right out of the box. And I am going to install a grease delivery system. And what I mean by that is basically I have a grease circ that is installed somewhere either here or here on my bell housing. You don't want to do this. This is actually a rib that supports it so that you can't actually drill that center area. As nice as it would be to be centered. But either way, there will be a grease circ that will be there, and when the motor is running, the drive shaft is always spinning, of course. You know, it's the actual outdrive, it locks it in gear or not. You go ahead and you pump this guy 5, 6, 7 times during the springtime. It shoots grease from the Zerk into the bearing itself, and you're done. There's absolutely no way that I'd ever think about pulling an outdrive and taking a long needle on a grease gun and shooting into a bearing that I couldn't even see way down there. Yeah, the bearing seats on this big ridge right here, and then the actual seal itself sits on the bottom ridge. After the seal's in place, there's about a 1/2 inch gap basically between the seal and the top of this ridge here where the bearing sits. My plan is to drill a hole into that, come out just before the bearing with a needle grease gun fitting, and then from the needle it'll be a fitting or two and then a hose, and it'll come up to here, and that's where the grease circle will be. Now that's the plan. At the moment I only have the rebuild kit. I still need the needle and the hose. Worst case, I could just steal the hose off of my grease gun over here if I need to. But, you know, I got a brand new one. It's not full of grease or anything at the moment, so it would be a plus if it did show. I could go with a sealed bearing and just be done with it. But, you know, I'm putting, in this case, will be 350, somewhere around horsepower through this thing. I mean, yeah, we're not playing around. I mean, I want this thing to be good up to 500 horsepower like my boat is. You know, it's been around for, what, 14 years? Something like that? I mean, it's a crazy amount of time. And no, I'm not taking the outdrive off and sticking a long needle in there and greasing it every season or whatever. That's just unfathomable to me, have that kind of maintenance. So this makes it real easy to deliver grease to, and I don't ever have to worry about it ever being, you know, under greased. Because like I said, you only get those little dabs in there. I mean, that's sealed, yeah, I get it, you know, but at the same time, I don't know, 500 horsepower through that little dabs of grease over, I don't know, 10 years. You think that's going to hold up? So I went and put a couple marks on the outside of it here to figure out exactly where what is what. And of course, this is where our seal edge begins. And about 1/8 or 1/4 inch underneath the actual, where it flattens out here, is where the actual bearing edge sits. So we have to get in right about here, and in between here, and we want to go down at a nice little angle and insert our needle, and then we'll permanently install it there. Now for our input, we have to come over on this side, and we don't want to go too deep because, you know, you'll be down here and the rubber seals are right about here. Okay, so that's where they end. And you don't want to go too tall because, you know, you got the flywheel in here spinning at insane RPMs. And then of course there's a damper plate that also goes on top of the flywheel, which sticks down even deeper into the bell housing. So you want to make sure you don't go way up here and try to, oh yeah, this would be the perfect place for it. No, it wouldn't. You end up ripping it apart with a flywheel. So what I like to do is just come up a little bit above these knots right here. That's plenty right there. I mean, the rubber seals are down here. They don't interfere with each other at all. This is out of the way. It doesn't want to get broken off up here where you got wiring and everything else running across. And we have to drill another hole. And what we have to drill that hole for is this guy right here. And all this guy is here is these 3 pieces. And just an all thread, a washer, and an elbow. And you put these guys together and you actually put this through the bell housing. And then you put another one of these elbows on the other side and you just crank it down until it is tight. That way you have an elbow on the inside, which of course you need because you want it to go down or sideways. You want it to go someplace. You don't want it to come straight out. And of course on this side you'll also have an elbow which will make it the fitting face up towards the motor or over to the side, whatever way you happen to want it to go. And it's a perfect way of transitioning from one side of the bell housing into the other side, because you just take these nice pretty stainless steel washers, you put them over top of it, you know, and then these guys sit on top of that. You know, it actually has a nice little trim ring around it. Yeah, it almost looks semi-professional. When my injection needle arrives, I'll be able to measure it, find out exactly what size it needs to be, and then actually drill the hole for that. And I probably can do this one now, so we'll probably just take care of that. Yeah, I tried to actually freeze it and then go ahead and try to slide it on the shaft. There must have been a small burr or something where the locking ring goes or something, because it just was not going to go past that without cocking. And once you cock it, you only get one time to do it that way. After that, it's already stuck. So yeah, we pulled out our trusty handy dandy press over here. As I said, I added these 3.5 foot long legs to it. It's just the regular standard small size. That's all I ever needed. I just had to press out a bearing here or press out a gear there on V drive. There was no reason to have something as big as my bench. I mean, you know, I've got all this extra space all over the place here. So yeah, we've got our shaft and our bearing combined. Now we're going to put our snap ring on real quick, and then we'll move on to other things. Welcome to another day. Yeah, it's nice now for a moment. It's supposed to be thunderstorms later, and this will probably be the warmest day we'll have for another, I don't know, 6 months. It's tempting, I'm telling you. I almost want to break out with some fiberglass work and maybe work on a motor box or something of that nature. But I keep looking at the long-term forecast, and it's like, yeah, it's going to be too cold to fiberglass, even at its warmest point of the day. So at the moment, we're working on our bell housing once again. We're going to go ahead and put a grease fitting in this bad boy so we can grease our bearing at will. And something that just arrived recently is this guy, Gotcha. Yeah, that's a needle. And the game plan is to pop a hole right through here and come out right down there on the bottom half of this second lip. I mean, I still want to be able to put my seal in and all that stuff, you know, so I mean, I don't want it to be like some kind of like permanent half-ass fix that you can't do any more maintenance to the bell housing afterwards. And this bad boy is going to be done right to where you would almost think it was factory, unless you kind of saw this video. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and I've taken a piece of steel, little aluminum backer here. That way my drill bit won't wander down into the bottom of the crotch. I mean, this is aluminum, so it will actually go in, and of course the aluminum's softer than the steel, so it won't want to actually go through the steel, it'll actually go through the aluminum. And I'm actually doing it on this side because this is where the cutout is for the starter. You can get my drill a little bit more angle straight into there. It just leaves a little more relief around the area that you're actually trying to drill. I mean, I have those angle drills and I could use my Dremel and all this other stuff, but no, I'm going to go ahead and use my regular old everyday Home Depot drill. And as I said, the insertion will happen, and then we'll go ahead and we'll hose it all up and put it together. Okay, it looks like our mission was a success. Our needle comes out at the bottom, not completely at the bottom of the shoulder. We don't want it to actually run into the shoulder of the bearing, but we're below where the actual seal sits. Actually, it's this black line right up here that actually where the end of the seal sits. So that is a perfect actual drilling. And yeah, I mean, a little bit of this is dumb luck. I mean, you can do a lot of measurements and you can do everything you can, but you know, sometimes you only can work with what space you have, and you do the best you can, and in this case it came out pretty perfect. The next step is to try to get some of these fittings put together, because none of this, you know, it all has to be built like that old black pipe, you know, gas pipe has to. You have to start at one end and work all the way to the other end. It's not like you can put this piece in between once I get this one in and that one in. So I'll have to do that. Then on top of that, I'm going to scuff this area up a little bit, and we will JB weld the crap out of it and basically set this whole thing right in a glob of JB weld, and that will hold it in place. I've also gone ahead and drilled a couple small holes here, so when this fitting is in place like so, we don't want that into the metal, we'll actually be able to zip tie it in place also. So this guy ain't going anywhere. As I said, mine's been done for 14 years. I guess being undercover and full of grease makes you have a good longevity. Okay, we're moving right along here. As you can see, our needle has come out perfect, and it's shooting right towards the bearing, and with a seal down there at the bottom and the shaft that goes through it that actually the seal rides on, so there's no gap between it, and then the bearing at this lip, worst case scenario, I fill the cavity with grease with my new fitting, and then it pushes it into the bearing. But as I said, with this actual nozzle coming right towards the bearing itself, and on top of that, I plan on cutting it off, so it'll be that whatever, it's probably 1/8 of an inch, you know, actual nozzle there instead of that little tiny point at the end. Yeah, this is going to be perfect because it'll shoot right towards the bearing. And as we saw with the bearing before, if you look, they just put dabs on the outside and it actually works in. You can't actually put your needle into the bearing case anyway because it's got this, you know, case that goes around and holds the bearings. So all you're trying to do is get grease right here, and then it actually will push it down inside. So this is perfect. And on top of that, we've gone ahead and JB welded our piece in. Yeah, the epoxy of the gods. You couldn't even weld this in if you wanted to. I mean, aluminum to whatever this metal is that needle's made out of, brass, all these different metals. Then on top of that, you can't melt that fine little tube. Yeah, you're best off just JB welding it in, even if you had all the equipment. But mine's in. It's been in for a little while. It should be pretty hard. And it's just a tiny bit soft, but you know, it's got plenty of time to set up. And as I said, I drilled these parts right here, just big enough to be able to put a zip tie in, and they go all the way around. And I'm waiting to actually finish it all the way around to this hole here until I actually cut it off. That way I want to blow it out with air first, and then I'll push grease through it, and then we'll put the rest of the bearing case back together. Our JB weld is hardened up enough to go ahead and take a hacksaw blade without the hacksaw and cut off the majority of what was left of our needle. And then I got a sanding drum on my Dremel and just sanded it off to where it's flush with the actual case itself. Now, as you can see, it is pointed right at the bearing. It'll shoot straight at it. And as I said, if it doesn't, then it'll just fill this cavity, and eventually it'll actually push into the bearing anyway. Because it can't come out this way because there's a seal and a shaft that the seal actually rides on. Unlike the backside where the coupler kind of slides in and out, this doesn't. It stays stationary, so if the cavity gets filled, then it has nowhere else to go but into the bearing. Or it could just push this seal out through, I don't know, 1/2 inch of aluminum, if that's the case. But I think I got bigger problems if the grease won't go through the bearing and it'll come out through 1/2 inch of aluminum. But it's pretty hard now. As I said, I wanted to blow it out, which I did, and everything works fine. Now I just need to put this end in. Alright, now let's give this a try. That's right into the bearing, which is perfect. Alright, let me catch that glob before it falls on my towel down there. Yeah, 2 squirts, that much. That's fine. That's perfect, man. We're good to go. Call this a done deal. And there we go. It took longer than we expected, but you know, we were doing other things in between time, and we were waiting on parts and such, but it's done. As we saw, we got grease that'll shoot right out of here into the bearing. As I said, worst case scenario, it sits between the actual outer seal here and the bearing itself. Eventually it gets filled up. As you can see, it only took about 2 squirts to put a big glob in there, so I mean, 5 or 6, 7 squirts, it would probably fill up most of it, and then it has to push through the bearing. So it's no matter what, it's going that way. And as you can see, we got our needle placed in, come up to these fittings. I'm a little sad about this fitting here. I really wanted an 1/8 inch male and female, and that would have shortened it up to about here, which would have made it a little bit shorter, but apparently there's not a single male female 1/8 inch fitting in this state. And of course, we just use our regular line like you would use for your regular grease gun here, and we bring it up to our outlet. And on this side you have just this guy here, which is this little L, which points it up towards the motor where I like it, kind of at an angle a little bit, so you can get your grease gun in there and don't have to worry about, you know, the distributor and stuff like that in the way. And on top of that, it's clean, it's solid, and it's out of the way. And now I have a way of delivering grease to my bearing. So in conclusion, it may not benefit me today, it may not benefit me tomorrow, but it will eventually, because every year you squirt a couple squirts of grease in there and the bearing stays good forever. Also, this seal will stay good forever. And it also creates a grease dam in here, so if your outdrive boot leaks, it'll slow down the water that comes through this shaft and out into your actual bilge. So, I mean, it's not going to stop it, of course, but having a lot of grease packed in there and that water having to get around it as opposed to just a clean shot right through the bearing and on into the boat, yeah, it helps out that way also. Okay, our first seal is in, and as you can see, our grease exit is above it and before the actual bearing, which makes it in a perfect position. Okay, we've gone ahead and got our shaft in and our bearing, snap rings, both of them, and now we just get to set the seal on top of that snap ring right there. And now we have our final seal in the right way. The other way around, all it would have done is kept water out, which there's not supposed to be any water in here in the first place. It would not have kept the grease in, which that's the purpose. And just as added precaution, I do these on all of my Volvo Bellhousings because I've seen so many of these seals just laying in here sideways, chewed up inside the bellows, whatever it happens to be. I dab a little JB Weld on 3 points around the edges just to lock it in place, because where it actually seats at, it's ramped and it wants to push it back off the ramp. And when the coupler starts sliding in and out of there, it wants to drag that seal back and forth with it. So a little bit of JB Weld on that side, and yeah, I mean, you'll be able to get that off if you had to. But hopefully, you know, I mean, these bell housings, after they've been rebuilt, if they're taken care of, especially being greased, they should last pretty much indefinitely. So that's it. This is done. We are moving on to another project. Welcome to another day. As you can tell by the orange cords, the season is done. At least we've definitely given up on it. So we've already got Beesmeyer, Nova all taken care of, and I don't think there really is much winterizing to this guy. It's a nice thing about having your motor in the garage, but that's also the bad thing, it's still going to go in the boat. And on another sad little thing, because I'm not a big fan of doing this, but it's something that has to be done. I've gone ahead and taken my cushion off of my motor box, undone a few little things here and there that need to be undone, and I'm about to unscrew the hinges, in which case then we'll have to lift it out and rig up some temporary support and such for my top, just in case for the next couple of days that they are saying it's supposed to be beautiful out here. It does not end up being beautiful, but the goal is to try to pop mold off of this box. I'm a little nervous, to be honest. If I screw up the mold is one thing. If I screw up my motor box, that's a whole nother thing entirely. But it has to be done. Yeah, I'm just dreading every moment. But a couple days have come. I mean, I expected something. I mean, it's just amazing on how fast the weather turned around here. It was just like all of a sudden, it was like, yeah, a few days of rain and that's fall. And now we're going to enter winter. But apparently we're going to get a little Indian summer or whatever you want to call it, and It's the perfect opportunity to try to do something like this, because during the summer it would have been ridiculous. I mean, the glass would have been going off. I should have plenty of time to work with it in this temperature, and if I could get this done, I mean, there's nothing next year except for upholstery and motor, and that is nothing to me. I mean, that is like a weekend. Because the motor will be done, and it'll be done over the winter, and the outdrive is done. It just needs to be repainted white instead of black like my boy is here, because it's my backup drive. So now I won't have a backup drive, but I also won't have a drive sitting in the garage doing nothing for the last 2 years either. So that's the goal. We just want to get it out of the boat. I want to get it in that boat, make sure that what I figure it's probably going to have 2 inches added to it all the way around, or at least all the bottom pieces. I mean, I guess the straight up and down won't matter anyway. And the top is going to hook like it does on here, and we'll see how bad things are. Well, that was easy. We're all done now. Let's move on. Just kidding. This is my motor box out of my 19, and here we are fitting it in, and it is a really close fit. I mean, a really close fit. And it's really something to see this thing actually in the boat. Looks like we're going to have to add about 1.25 inches down at the bottom. Like I said before, this deck is actually dropped, and compared to my deck, it's much higher by about 2 inches, maybe 3. But everything else fits real well. The seats, everything else, and I really don't want to add a whole lot and make it a whole lot taller. I just want to make it higher on this end so it's not so sloped this way. So that's the game plan. I've gone ahead and got all my cushions marked, ready to go. So if I want to go ahead and cut them out and start getting them done over the winter, that can be done also. And now we need to take this guy out, right, Jack? Say right. We got to take this guy out and set it behind the boat, and then I got to strip all the pieces off of it, which I'm not looking forward to, because some of them are there and probably will not want to come off too friendly, and get it prepped up for making a mold. Okay, here we are. We've got our motor box up on stilts, I guess. Really just a couple buckets and a sawhorse. Get it off the ground. We stripped it. There's a lot of stuff on here. And yeah, it's starting to show its age a little bit. This is like its 12th season since the last redo. I'll be honest with you, I really don't understand these rust rings. And that's a stainless steel handle with stainless steel bolts and stainless steel washers and nuts. Where'd the rust come from? Nobody knows. But as I said, I've got it all nice and washed up now, and I think the next step is go ahead and put a coat of wax on it, of our special wax. Alright folks, we already got our 1 layer of high temp mold release. Well, we're not going to be able to leave that here, so we'll just put this right over here. Nice. Okay, well, this is where we're at. We're supposed to put 5 or 6 coats of this mold release on it, and wait about 35 minutes in between each coat for it to dry. And we're at a point now that another 35 minutes is going to be dark as all can be. So we're kind of stuck there anyway. We weren't using this as a mold release. It's hard to put it into, words, so to speak, for me, but we are using it because we want added protection. So I am going to go at 3 or 4, maybe 5 coats of this mold release on it. And then I've got a gallon jug, which is a spray-on mold release right over there. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to spray it down. That's the way I did the rudder piece that's on the back of the race boat over here. I sprayed it down. The mold itself leaves like this kind of plasticky looking rubbery stuff on it, for those who haven't done it. And for those who have, sorry. But this is new to me. I mean, I've done all kinds of things with boats, but that is the first piece I've ever had to pull out of a mold. And I didn't make the mold. It came with the boat because they knew it was bad when I got it. So they already went ahead and made the mold up, and I bought it before they actually got to actually building it. So that's where we're at right now. We've got our mold release, the first layer on. It'll have all night to actually dry up, quote unquote. Then we'll hit it with another couple coats tomorrow morning, and hopefully from there we'll be able to spray a couple, 3 coats, 4 coats of this mold release on. If I can get all the prep work done tomorrow, then hopefully the next day, because we only have a window here of 3 or 4 days at maximum, I actually can get something actually built. And the whole goal is just to get the mold built. I'm not worried about actually building the motor box itself yet. That's something that can come down the road whenever. But the real problem is I have to take this motor box out of my boat and actually make the mold off of it. And I didn't want to do that while my boat was still in service. So I need to get this out of the way, because as soon as springtime comes, trust me, my 19 will be the first one that goes in the water. It always is. It's my rescue boat. You know, if I take this guy out for a test drive and it breaks down, this one's coming to get it. So, all right, that's it for the night, and we'll see you tomorrow. God, these batteries near dead as soon as they start them. Kind of miss the old days. Yeah, it's painted, but sadly, the bearings. Just heard a pack of geese go by. Nah. Okay. So now I talk, and then I go into it. All right, we're gonna put a pause in there in case we don't need this. One more time. What the hell was I saying now? Some kind of edit to the whole thing. Little of this, little of that, little of this, little of that, little of this, little of that. All right, I get it, I get it. Slapping and flapping the whole camera here, people. That's what we gotta do in between every freaking shot, because I'm down to 1 camera. Okay, we're gonna pause, clean up all this mess, and then we'll show what we did. Let the car go by, let the car go by, little blue car went by.